Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING. Get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator exclusively on DRF Bets.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Past the Wire TV. I'm fortunate to have Saffie Joseph here on the show today. I'm so appreciative of him coming on in the wake of a monster win in the Florida Derby. I mean, congratulations and thank you for coming on the show, Saffie.
Thanks for having me on.
Huge win. But before and we'll talk about the big horse, but before we get there, you're from Barbados, correct?
Yeah, I'm from Barbados.
I only know of one other trainer that's from Barbados, and he seems to have done quite well for himself. And now you are kind of making a big name for yourself. What is it about Barbados racing that the guys that come over here from there, or go over to the Europe from there, seem to do pretty well at the high levels?
Yeah, Barbados produces good horsemen, even from the grooms to the riders. A lot of riders have had success. Obviously, Patrick Husbands is probably the most known rider. He's had great success at Woodbine. And then
right.
Sir Michael Stout, he's the most successful trainer from Barbados. He never actually trained in Barbados. He went to England and then he started training over there. But he's the most recognized trainer from Barbados. He's had a lot of success worldwide, a lot of Breeders' Cups, all over the world, England. So we're trying to follow in his path, but do it stateside in America.
Well, I was going to say, right now he's the most successful guy from Barbados, but you're a lot younger than he is. So you got a chance, man. You're on the road. You won a grade 1 with a horse you claimed a couple of years back, Math Wizard. That's quite an accomplishment. Now you've got a horse that, just won the Florida Derby, one of the most successful and key preps for the Kentucky Derby. You've got one of the Kentucky Derby favorites, going in. So, you're on the map there, especially you're on the map altogether, but with Barbados guys, you're right there, man.
No, most definitely. I mean, we've had good success, and it's taken a while to get here, to at least in America. And we've got good support now. We've got good support from the owners, which you need as a trainer. You can't do it without the owners. The owners, in reality, they make everything happen. And then we're the final pieces of the puzzle: the team, our staff, and then myself. It's basically like a puzzle. And if one piece is missing, it's not gonna get the final picture. You'll get an idea, but you're not gonna be able to finish it off. So everyone needs to do their part.
I gotta tell you, I'm a huge racing fan. I'm a bettor, so I study the game very well. I consider myself a student of the game. I've been around it a long time. You came on my radar very early in your American career because I love the Gulfstream meet. I live in Florida, and I just noticed you early on. I'm like, this guy wins, and he wins. With horses that I think kind of signify a guy who knows what he's doing, like a guy who can consistently win first time out. I say, okay, you kind of got to know what you're doing to win with first time starters. A guy who can win off a layoff without a horse needing a race or two. To me, as just a bettor and a student of the game, you know, I notice guys that are capable of doing that consistently because it signals to me, okay, this guy knows what he's doing, or this woman knows what they're doing. They're a horseman, so to speak, you know, because there are a lot of trainers that are just not able to do that. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of that comes down to horsemanship and just, you know, training ability. Um, Tell me a little bit about how you got started in the business in Barbados. What brought you to thoroughbred racing, and ultimately what made you decide to come over here to the States?
Oh, I'm basically born into horses. In Barbados, where my dad was a trainer, my granddad, he trained a bit, but he was majority a owner. I mean, he started training probably from the 40s or the 50s in Trinidad and Barbados. And he was one of the top owners over there. My dad probably started training in the 70s. So I was born in 87, and how we train in Barbados, the horses are based on the farm. And basically, we live on the farm. So you come out, you're always dealing with the horses in the morning and the afternoon. You're learning from the grooms. The grooms teach much. My dad had such good grooms, and that's one of the most important parts. Is having a great groom. People don't give them the credit they deserve, but they're a big piece of the puzzle. And my dad always taught me to try to hire the best grooms, and that's something
Really?
that we do up to today. We're always trying to get better and better grooms. And I started training at 18 over there. I took out my license at 18 in Barbados, and we didn't have many horses. My dad, I kind of like cut down at that point. So I started off with like 2 or 3 horses. I had a good filly named Walk On By. She did well, and she won like over there the Philly Oaks. And then a couple of years later, we had a horse named Are You Talking to Me? And he was probably one of the best locally bred horses for many years. He Triple Crown for us at 22. Became the youngest ever to win the Triple Crown in Barbados.
Wow,
He's
that I did not know. That's interesting. So you're our Barbados Triple Crown winner.
Yeah, I think he was like the 6th one ever, and like Barbados has been racing for 100 years. And I think he's like the 6th one to win the Triple Crown. And it took like another 13 or 6 or either 13 or 14 years to have another one. But he's a horse that, looking back now, he actually trained me. I didn't train him.
Well, that's good because that's going to help you now, because now you're on the biggest stage in racing. I mean, there were bigger races, you know, well, as big races, you know, you could talk about the Arc, the Melbourne Cup. There are a lot of huge races, but the Kentucky Derby just has that mystique and that fame. You know, it's referred to as, you know, the greatest 2 minutes in sports, an unbelievable history. So let me ask you this: with your experience from Barbados and the Triple Crown at 22 years old, is this a kind of pressure that, even though you're a young guy, you're already kind of used to, so it's not like overwhelming? Tell me a little bit about the pressure and what you're feeling right now, being in the spotlight of having a Derby favorite.
Yeah, I think most definitely experience or in anything in life is how you learn and get better at anything, and especially horses. Horses, you see so much different scenarios, and each day you see different something. Whoa, I never expected that, and that's when you're in those scenarios before, you kind of know how to deal with them. Just like with White Abarrio getting sick. Funny enough, our horse in Barbados, Are You Talking, before the first leg of the Triple Crown, he was sick on like the Tuesday. So we kind of been in that scenario where we know how to deal with it, and hopefully the horse could come through in time to make the judgment call that he's fit and healthy to run. I mean, after that, we had clean sailing with him as his next 2 legs, and he went on and won those 2 legs also. But it's just experience. Nothing beats experience, and when you see a lot of scenarios, you kind of learn how to deal with them. And with horses, you're always calling audibles. Things are very rarely going exactly how you want. And I said this before: if they are going exactly how you want, that means sometimes you're becoming complacent and you're missing the things.
Really interesting. Now let's talk a little bit about White Abarrio, because he's the star of the show really right now. His race prior to the Florida Derby, I thought he had a perfect trip and a perfect setup, and he capitalized on it and won very good. And he kind of had a similar kind of trip, I thought, in the Florida Derby. Everything kind of went well. Tyler rode him perfectly. And when it was, you know, time to go, he responded and won smart again. As a trainer, is it, in your opinion, more advantageous to have a horse coming off good trips, or maybe sometimes you prefer a little adversity or a little bit of a rough trip that maybe he might get more out of that race? Which would you prefer going in?
I mean, you always prefer the trip that you're gonna win. I mean, you can win, losing.
Obviously, right.
I thought he got the adversity trip in Kentucky. As I said, when you lose, sometimes you got to look for realistic excuses, because it's easy to make excuses in this game, and if you just make excuses, you're never going to become more successful. And it's easy to point blame. So realistically, in the Kentucky Jockey Club, I thought he got that adversity trip. He was he was a little keen. He had some outside pressure, so he ended up slotted in behind a horse in front, and he took dirt the whole way. Never really had anywhere to go until about the 8th pole, where he was able to come out, and then he stayed on evenly, never going to win. On that day, I was talking to the ownership group. I said, we got beat today. I mean, it obviously hurt to get beat,
Right.
because he do. But I said, if anything, today he got valuable experience. This is going to teach him today what nothing else could teach him, because he was in a scenario that he's never faced, taking a bunch of dirt, and he didn't quit. And that day, I thought he showed something of a quality horse. Like he still kept running. Most horses take that kind of dirt, never get out, and over race early on in the race. They'll kind of just fade, and he stayed on evenly. I mean, he wasn't running on strongly, but he was staying on evenly. That gave us confidence going forward that distance would be okay. And so said, in the next race in the Holy Bull, now we talked with the ownership group, and we decided we want to ride him as the best. We don't mind if we give up ground. If we get beat and we give up ground, then we know we're not the best horse. But we kind of want to put him in a spot early on as the best. We want to know if he's the best horse in the race or if he's not. And if that means giving up ground each turn, we're willing to sacrifice that. And that's the kind of trip he's got.
And that's something you tell Tyler too before the race. Like, listen, this is how I want you to ride him. Like, he's the best horse. If you've got to give up some ground, do it, and let's find out what we got.
Correct. Yes, because we learned in the jockey club, like, we didn't want to get that kind of trip where it leaves us with doubt. Are we good enough? Or are we not good enough? And in the whole, we Tyler, like, look, break away from their run-in, be very aggressive, put him in a spot. And if he has to go faster than he needs to, we think he's good enough to overcome it. And if he's not, then we know we're not dealing with that kind of horse. And Tyler was if you watch the Holy Bull, how he sent him away from the gate, he was very assertive in getting his position. And he got a great spot, obviously, because that right off. And I thought in a Holy Bull, he got a better kind of spot. He didn't really lose much ground. And
when in this horse's career, Saffie, as a 2-year-old, or maybe after the Holy Bull or before the Holy Bull, or when did the words Kentucky Derby first come into your mind as a possibility with this horse?
Well, they bought him after his first race. His first race was very impressive. He was drawn 1. He was in between horses for a young horse and working the way nicely. So they bought him with high expectations after that first race. And the owner called me, Mark, and he says, bought this horse for you. And I was like, wow, that's a nice horse. So from then you're always thinking it, but then, I mean, that's just one race.
Right.
Next race was a lot of pressure because it's his first start. We bought him for it. They paid a lot of money for him. And we got an allowance race to go that we were trying to build towards the jockey club. He won that very, very visually impressive. He got slower early internal fractions, but when Edgar Zayas rode him that day, when he called on him, he just quickened the way like effortless. And that day, I said he's a grade 1 horse for sure. I mean, obviously we'll fight. It was longer, but in my opinion, he's a grade 1 because that it was a 1-turn mile. I said he was a grade 1-turn mile horse for sure. Until they go 2 turns, you never really know. And then went to the jockey club next. He got beat that day, but that's where I said we learned valuable. He overcame adversity and still showed up. And we thought off of that run we'll have a very good chance going into the Holy Bull. Obviously, 2 weeks before the Holy Bull, 3 weeks before the Holy Bull, he got sick and missed 2 works. And after that, I wasn't really sure how we were running the Holy Bull. It was more or less, we need to get him started. We got 1 work into him, and he came out okay after that, as far as health-wise. And it was time to get him started, but we were giving up a lot of fitness going into the Holy Bull. And the Holy Bull was a pleasant surprise, just because I didn't think we had him prepared how he should be prepared.
Is that the sign of a special horse when you know they're not 100% and you know that you know you're just getting started and they come out and run a big race like that? Does that show you as a horseman and a trainer that, hey, this one's a little different, this one's special? Is that like one of the things that you guys recognize?
Yes, most definitely. I think good horses, like just like anyone like in sports, good athletes, they can overcome things that the average athletes can't overcome, whether it be pressure, like a little sickness or issue, and that's what good horses can overcome trainers' mistakes. And as I said in the Holy Bull, we didn't have him prepared for horses to win that kind of race. I find like in the bigger, better races, you need to be tight on as far as have campaigns as good as preparation as good as possible to win those races. And I thought we were giving up a big advantage after going into the Holy Bowl. Coming into the Florida Derby was a bit different. We had a little setback where he spiked the temp, but this scenario, we weren't giving up fitness because all of our serious work was done.
Right.
Got sick after his second to last work, which was more serious work. So he spiked the temp for one day. And in this scenario, it was different. It was more or less just making sure he got back to health, blood-wise, that he was ready to run. But it wasn't fitness like the Holy Bull. I thought the Holy Bull was the race where he was more at his weakness then.
If when he spiked that temperature, if he didn't bounce back as fast as he did, would you have altered plans and maybe went for the Bluegrass or the Wood Memorial, a later race, to give him more time?
Yeah, we talked it over briefly, and we were actually going to go to Lexington. It was a weird, because we knew even if he didn't get over it, it would only be an extra week. It would kind of make us tight anyway. So we were going to take the Lexington route and hope that he would get 20 points there and had 12 before 32 to get us in the Derby. But right. We talked about it, but then in the back of our mind, we didn't want to be in that scenario. I mean, but if we were told we had to go there, that was kind of the plan, to go to Lexington. And up to like Friday, Saturdays, when we started to get a little more confident that we'll be able to make the Florida Derby.
Interesting. You know, you may have a different perspective as a trainer and a horseman than I do, but when I bet on a Kentucky Derby, I always look for a horse that not necessarily ran his best last time. I try and look for a horse that I think is going to run his best, and they could be coming off a big win, but I look for a horse that I think is going to go forward. Okay, that I think is moving forward. That's not going to repeat his last race. That's going to run better. Do you approach it the same way? I mean, are you training and working with your horse to peak on that first Saturday in May? Is that what you're looking to do, or do you kind of feel like you've got him right where he needs to be and he's just got to stay where he is in order to be competitive?
Yeah, that's basically the plan. The plan that was the reason for the 3-race series. After he won the Holy Bull, we were going to put all our eggs in one basket. That we figured he was good enough, and if he's good enough, he's going to earn the points. And if he's not good enough, he's not going to earn the points. We didn't just want to get to the Derby running in 2 or 3 more races just to get to the Derby and then have a horse that's tired for the Derby. We figured that his 3rd race would be best off to lay off, and that was the plan in that sense. Obviously, when he got the step back 12 days before the Florida Derby, all kind of thoughts went through your head. You know what I mean? You're trying to do it perfectly, and then here we are dealt this card that we may end up missing. Now we're really on the back burner. So that's the risk you take, but thankfully it worked out. And now it's worked out, you would want to believe that he is primed to run his best race on Derby Day and move forward. And if he can move forward 2 to 3 lengths, those are the kind of numbers that are probably gonna win the Derby. And he paired an 8 3/4 on the rags, and I'm not a lot of people that read the rags tell me that they like when horses pair. I'm more a buyer, and basically the buyer he paired on the buyer. So he's basically paired his last 2 races on all the handicapping tools, and when they all kind of collaborate, it kind of gives you more confidence that they're not misleading information. And I feel like when that happens, the horse he could make a jump, and if he makes that jump next time, physically he is kind of he keeps improving physically, like how he looks, and he needs to improve again one more time to become a Derby winner. Hopefully he does.
Yeah, he has a really good good running style to set up for that race, especially in recent years. In recent years, the winners seem to be laying close to the pace. We haven't had a horse come from the clouds to win the Derby in a while, as far as I could remember. And I think you kind of have a better chance of making your own trip work out when you've got that tactical speed to lay up close. What do you think about that? You think that's an advantage for him?
No, most definitely. Speed always helps you work out your own better trip. The good thing about him in the Florida Derby, he was able to sit even further back than he had ever sat, because so he has speed to go on to the lead if he needs to, and if they're going quick enough, he has speed. He'll rate kindly for you. So I think he's a horse that is the kind of horse you want for the Derby. And I know in the Derby you always handicap the race. Sometimes when I'm not running it, you handicap it and you bet it as there's so much speed and all these closers are going to come on. In the last few years, as you said, none of their closers have come. I've liked some closers for the last couple of years, and none of them seem to be coming. It just keeps to be running around there like the first three, like each year. And speed's been very lethal in the Derby recently.
And if it works out that way, and like I said, we don't know the draw yet. We don't know, a lot could happen from now till then. But if it works out that you guys wind up on the lead, you break, the other speed doesn't go, and I assume Tyler's riding him in the Derby, and are you adverse to being on the lead if it works out that way?
No, most definitely. I think he could run, as I said, he could run anywhere. If he needs to lead, he's already led in some of his races, and if he doesn't need to lead and he needs to track, he can track. He's a versatile horse, and that's one thing that you want. You don't want to be one dimensional, that you have to lead, or in that scenario, he has versatility.
Right. No, I agree. In the time from now till the Derby, is there anything that as a trainer you can do? And you don't have to tell me what it is, because I know you guys have your own ways of doing things, and I wouldn't put you on the spot and ask you that, because it's really nobody's business but yours. But is there anything that you can do with a horse from now till then that can help them get that distance that they've never been before, 1.25 miles? I mean, I would think, well, maybe you gallop them longer, or maybe you put somebody with a lot of weight on them or something. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a trainer. I'm not a horseman. But are there things that you as a trainer can do that can kind of, and we know, you never know that they'll get the distance till they do it. But are there things that you as a horseman and a trainer can do to say, okay, I'm going to try and help this guy get that distance and have that foundation for that last 1/8 of a mile, which he's, not done yet?
I think the only thing you really do is you could put in more kind of stamina gallops, in that sense, as starting off and finishing up your gallops a bit stronger. But
Right.
you want a fine line. You don't like that's the way I think you build kind of some kind of stamina in horses. But you also want to be careful with that. You don't take away their natural speed. And I mean, sometimes you put stamina gallops in the horse, and your horse he loses that early zip. So
Right. And then then you're a dozen lengths back when you didn't expect to be.
there's a fine line in that sense of not. I don't think we're gonna really change much in that sense. We will probably put in a couple more extra stronger gallops, but not to say we're gonna do it consistently. We're not gonna change much. He's either gonna get the distance or he's not gonna get a distance. That's the reality of it. I feel right now 1.25 miles that he'll get it. I know people kind of knocked the race. You're always gonna have your detractors, and it's because they said the last furlong was slow and so on. But the reality was, if he didn't get the distance, what about the ones behind him? I mean,
Right.
mission slower than him, basically. So before that, you never heard that Simplification wasn't going to get the distance, and we beat him. And same thing with Charge It. So
Right.
Easy to always knock a race in that sense, but I thought going into that race, that was one of the top preps competition wise, and we were happy to come out on top of it.
Right. I'm curious, what did you think of Charge It's race? He looked a little bit green, a little inexperienced. It was his first time 2 turns, and he kind of made a run at you. He wasn't up to really challenging your horse, but a lot of people seem to be impressed with his race. What was your take on Charge It's race?
Charger ran big. I saw him in the paddock, and he scared me how he looked. He big, imposing, good looking horse. I mean, he's well bred, and I had seen his works obviously on XPTV going into the race, and I knew he had some strong work. So I knew, trained by Todd, who's one of the greatest, if not the greatest trainers ever, and Um, his works were against older horses. At the time working, I think it was against Fearless and somebody
Right.
else, and really outworked those horses. So, and then you see him in the paddock when you're saddling, and wow, it made me go, wow. I mean, he looked like a horse set to run his best race. Obviously,
Right.
it's a tall task going from a maiden special to a grade one. So that was kind of my hope that the experience will help us. And then he didn't sit the best trip charge that you would say. He sat a trip that kind of like one that White Abarrio sat in the jockey club. He was kind of balled up the whole
Right.
way, taping ground, but he was taking all that dirt. And then at the quarter pole, he swung out. I made his run, and thankfully we were able to hold him off. I thought he got a. I wouldn't say he was a little green on any more than that. I thought maybe he was going to get a little leg weary because
Right.
it is, and that's why he drifted in a couple times. You know what I mean? I think both of them were getting a little tired at the end, and that's bit. But as far as the race goes, he ran a big race. I mean, horses from after that kind of race, they go two ways. He's either going to move forward huge or he's going to back up after that kind of race because
Right.
it told on you.
Interesting. Couple more questions about the Derby. Then I want to ask you about something else. Then I'll let you go because I really appreciate your time, and I know you're busy, especially now. Um, Walking over, they make a big deal about that, and this really means nothing to me. But I've never had a Derby horse and did it. But they make such a big deal about that walk over with the horses. Okay. Um, I know you're an emotional guy. I saw the interview on TV. I know you have a lot of passion for the horses and for what you do. I have a good friend who's a trainer at Gulfstream as well, and he tells me that you're one of the hardest working and most passionate guys on the backside over there. You know, so what are you even thinking about that walk over, or some reporters coming over and asking you some silly questions or good questions? You never know. Sometimes they're a little silly, in my opinion. Sometimes they're good. But what are you anticipating about that long walk over to the paddock? Over to the
I learned like experience. As I said, we were there 2 years ago with New York traffic, but there was
right,
a September, and there were no fans, so
right.
that is definitely I don't
And he wasn't the favorite or one of the favorites.
most definitely. And so it was a different walk. As I said, there was that noise, but there were like a lot of helicopters and stuff, and the horses did get a bit upset. So I think one thing you learn is that you want to put earplugs in your horses' ears at least for the walkover, because you can
Really?
just see all those fans how loud it's gonna get. And even with no fans last time, because you had the media there still, it's still kind of it's a surreal feeling. It's because you're running in the probably the most the best race obviously in America, and one of the most recognized races in the world. So, and just to be there is good. Obviously, you would like victorious, and hopefully this year it could be the year for us.
Obviously, you and Tyler have a good relationship. You'll talk to him in the paddock before the race, obviously. But how much do you talk to him and strategize with him? And is he involved in getting to the race, and how the horse is doing, and how much strategy goes on between you and your rider for a race like this?
I don't think we talked that much as far as the race goes. Tyler worked him a couple of times, and he was oozing confidence in how he worked. And then I think the day before the Florida Derby, I saw him. He was coming back on the next horse after he rode the horse, and we briefly talked about what we were going to do. And then basically on race day, we said a couple of words, and that was it. I mean, I know he has a plan, and basically he's feeling the pressure. I'm feeling the pressure, so why put more pressure on him? I
Gotcha.
mean, horse twice already. At the end of the day, we're going to be kind of for the same kind of trip we've had the last two, and there's not much more you can say. I mean,
Now, let's switch topics, and we'll close out with a last thought about the Derby. But racing has so many issues going on right now, and granted, a lot of it is our own doing, with aftercare, with just so many issues. But one of the issues that plagues racing today is that you're a victim of this yourself, and that's why I want to ask you about it and what it means to you, and how you respond to it. Because you know how hard you work, you know what you do, you know what you put into your career and into these animals. Anybody today that wins at a high percentage gets scrutinized, and sometimes unfairly, sometimes fairly, but sometimes unfairly labeled. Oh, they have to be cheating, they have to be doing something wrong, they have to be up to no good, it's nefarious, nobody could win at that percentage. And I will tell you this, the game, generally speaking, and I've been watching it since the late 60s, early 70s, okay, win percentages are higher now for guys across the board. And there's a lot of 100% legitimate reasons for that. But anybody who wins at over 20% now gets scrutinized, and some of them get labeled. You get attacked sometimes for that and scrutinized for that. How do you respond to it? What do you say? Do you block that noise out? I mean, what are your thoughts on being labeled by people who may or may not know anything as possibly doing something wrong, when just because you're being successful? Because basically that's what it comes down to. If you're successful, you get your fingers, you get fingers pointed at you by certain people, especially in the days of social media. So can you give me a little insight into your response and your feeling on that?
I think when we had success, so first of all, let's start right before we were kind of recognized. We used to win races at a decent percentage and a good percentage, but we wouldn't get enough horses. And you watch the TV and they talk about this high percentage trainer and that high percentage trainer, and then I realized, you know what, percentage is what they want. That's the way to get recognized. And I decided that if I was going to claim a horse for 10,000, and he was going to win for 10, I was going to run him for 6,250, and he has a much better chance of winning, and he'll still come out ahead.
And the purses allow for that today, where 20 years ago they did not. So correct. That's one of the things I was alluding to, that there are reasons now. And another thing is, like you said, the stats. People right away look at stats. They're right in the racing form, in the past performances, win percentages. So owners, bettors, everybody looks for that. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to get that point out there.
So, like, if I ran him for 10, there's a possibility he could run second or third, and he doesn't win. Our percentage doesn't go up. If I run him for 6,250, he wins. And even if things don't go right, he could probably win. And that's one of the keys. And I built the percentage up to where we get recognition, and owners started coming in, obviously. And then a lot of our owners were referrals. One owner would come, he would come to our barn, he would see how hard we work and how good we did things, and he would refer to other owners. And the reality of it is, you show me any successful trainer, you will see a strong set of owners behind him. There's no successful trainer out there that has weak owners. Even if they be at a smaller track, they're going to have the best owners at that track. And as we started to get more and more success, you would hear all the people talking and stuff. And I think a lot of the talk comes from trainers at the track. Some of the ones that are unsuccessful, they want to talk too much instead of paying attention to their horses. And they're the ones that start the rumors, and then it just circulates after that. It used to bug me mentally at the beginning, and then you know what? It doesn't bug me anymore, because I know what we are, I know what we do, I know the team we have behind us, and I just use it to fuel me more. And the more we win, the better I feel. Same thing with claiming horses. You claim a lot of horses, and you claim one horse that jumps up, and people notice that horse, but they didn't notice the other 4 or 5 horses that were lateral horses as far as class wise. And that basically, the reality of it, there's no super trainer out there. And if any trainer that tells you that, they're lying to you. Owners make trainers, and unless you train for good owners, you cannot have success. And I go back to what I said. If you look at any successful trainer out there, look at his owner core. His owner core is going to be the best ownership group you could train for. I mean, obviously in anything in life, in any sport, in any business, they're going to have bad apples. You know what I mean? Right. But when you just try to point to anyone that's successful that they're doing bad without any proof, then you're just hurting the game in reality. And a lot of people, they say they care about the game, but they're just throwing things out there. That's actually hurting the game more than anything. I mean, if you have proof, go ahead, prove it to anyone that that is doing wrong, and let them face the penalties for what they're doing. But to just go ahead and try, anyone that's successful talk about, oh, this guy's that or this guy's that, you're actually hurting the game. You don't love the game if it's easy to talk to make up all kind of conspiracies. As I said, if you know for sure, go ahead and turn that information in and get that person to face penalties. But just when you just talk without anything, you don't really like the game. You're hurting the game already that faces all the outside sources from PETA and these people that try to cry racing down. I would say majority of the barns that my peers and stuff, they take great care of horses. I know my horse in my barn, they get better care than myself. And
Let me ask you a question, point blank. You love animals?
most definitely.
You love horses?
Horses are my life. Sometimes, I mean, it sounds crazy, but sometimes I'll take better care of my horses than my kids. And that,
I don't have children, but I have a lot of dogs, and I can understand that because most people that know me say, if I die, I want to come back as one of your dogs because I take pretty good care of them. So I can relate to that. Saffie, let me ask you this, and again, I'll try and be quick. A lot of trainers tell me that the testing procedures from state to state vary. They test for minuscule amounts of legal therapeutic medications that everybody uses, and it's very easy if you're not extra careful to come up with a positive test, even though you may not have done anything wrong. Different horses metabolize different. Something may clear one horse's system faster or slower than another horse's system. How bad or good is our testing program, and does it need to really be overhauled to make it easier for you guys to follow the rules and be able to do what you need to do without having to worry about a false positive causing a blemish on your reputation?
well, I think the one with clearing a system faster than others, I think that's the excuse when you get a positive more than anything.
Okay.
We use that as an excuse. I mean, do I think it can happen? Probably occasionally, yes, but I think it's more positives and like trainers get positive, and you very rarely hear people admitting they have a positive or the reason for the positive. And there's going to be positives if you're training long enough as a trainer, you will get a positive because you're dealing with humans, and humans make mistakes. If humans didn't make mistakes, the world would be perfect, and the world's far from perfect. So that's the reality of it is. And then when you try to you see the news media is now a trainer gets a positive and they try to put all this like a positive for a class 4 or class 3 is the same as a class 1, and that's something that you need to explain to people that there's a big difference with the kind of positive that someone gets. Right. Should there be universal rules? Yeah, of course, most definitely. You're racing in states like, for instance, with New York, New Jersey, and Maryland. They're right next to each other within hours, and New York's different medication rules than New Jersey, and then New Jersey is different. Just have the same rules as Maryland, but yet they rule differently on medication rules, and I think that is a big problem. Yeah. Where I think same with Florida. Florida's did different medication rules to New Jersey or to New York, and you need consistency, especially in the states that are so close to each other, because I mean you're running a horse 3 hours apart, and there's different medication rules. And I think if you have universal rules, the same rules, it makes it easier for the trainers, and it makes getting positives, less positives, and avoiding mistakes. The next thing is they try to knock the racing in the USA, and most of it is done from Europe, like saying that US racing, we race on so much medication. The reality of it, all the same medications are used in Europe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's different withdrawal periods. You know what I mean? If Butte is used in America at say 48 hours in New York, it's used in Europe at 6 days. If Lasix is used, the horses race on Lasix over here, they use Lasix at 72 hours over there. So right. This is more of teaching and understanding instead of spreading propaganda. The same exact medications are used in Europe or aren't they used over here? They're just different withdrawal periods.
Right. And most people don't realize that. They think that they run.
Correct. They're thinking that from medication, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, the only difference is over here horses receive Lasix on race day, but over there they're receiving medication during the week the same exact way, and they're training on farms. Who's to say they're not they're not doing more drastic things on the farms? They're not regulated like we are regulated at a track.
Right.
So I think that's just one trying to knock the other. I mean, it's two different countries and they're trying to knock the other, and then some people fall for the scapegoat instead of broadening their knowledge and having an understanding.
No, I agree. Your plans for the rest of the year? You're going to? I know. Past couple of years, you've summed up at Saratoga. Is that the plan again? You're going from Gulfstream to, obviously you're making a little stop in Kentucky, but are you planning to have a string up at Saratoga again this year?
Yeah, most definitely. We're gonna do. We did New York last year. We had a good Belmont. Saratoga. We won our first race and then we lost our next 49. So
Saratoga's a tough meet. We know that. You know, I ran one horse in Saratoga as an owner, and I don't even remember what year it was. What year? It was back in 2001. We lost Saffie. Oh, you're back. I ran a horse in 2001 at Saratoga, and he won. And I'm never running another one because I'm keeping the highest win percentage of anybody at Saratoga. I'm 1 for 1 as an owner, and I'm staying that way. So.
No, but in reality, just like show you Saratoga. So we came off of Belmont where we had won a grade 1. And then we went to Saratoga. I think Belmont and the meet before we won like probably 25-30%. And we went to Saratoga. We won our first race, and then we lost our next 49. And then people talk, oh, you can't win in New York. They forgot a month earlier we just won a grade 1 in at Belmont, and then we went to Belmont after that. We had after Saratoga, we had a great Belmont. I think we won like 5 stakes or 4 stakes, basically 4 in a row every week. We won a couple of them graded. So that's the reality in this game. Everyone's very short-minded as far as you go through a spell where you don't win. Oh, you're labeled, or you're not using this, you're not using that, and you win. Oh, you're cheating. So that as I said, that's the racing's biggest knock is itself sometimes. And
I understand.
Saratoga, I learned this year. I kind of took mainly stake horses up there, and I didn't have anything that in the mid-level to the bottom-level horses to kind of get you through a rut when you're going through a bad spell. And the stake horses obviously didn't fire. It kind of put you in a spell where by the time then it was all the damage was done. So this year we'll take a better kind of roster, and hopefully we'll win more than one race and not lose 49 in a row. But
I got a feeling you'll win more than one this year up there. And this is a streaky game. We know that for everybody, whatever level. I mean, you know, everybody runs hot and cold in this game. I mean, everybody. You know, it's streaky.
And that, obviously, Saratoga is a short meet, so it's not a spot of time you want to run cold. I mean, because it's most watch meet at that time of the year. Overall, New York was great for us. I won 2 grade 1s in New York for the year. In our first year, 2 grade 1s, and we probably won like 6 or 7 stakes. And I think we still batted at over 20% in New York for the year. So it was a good year overall, but it was remembered for me not doing well at Saratoga. But
that happens. But you'll get a shot. You'll get a shot this year. And if things go well on the first Saturday in May, that erases a lot of you know, those bad meets and bad runs. So that's for sure. You know.
No, I always move forward. I mean, everything learning, you always want to take the positive from every negative outcome and try to keep getting better. I mean, as I said, I learned last year. I learned a few things that what I did wrong, and as far as the roster that I took there. I mean, I tried to please some owners by running some horses that didn't belong there, and then at the end of the day, it backfired because your stats drop and people started to say, "Oh, you're not capable." And so those are kind of things I learned that not to do again, because people are, as I said, much success as you have in this game, if you go through a belt spell, they're ready to throw you below the belt.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. When are you taking the big horse to Louisville? Are you a guy that likes to get in early, or are you going to get in late?
He's going to do most of his work here. He's going to get late.
All right.
Either ship far out or you ship close in, and we're going to ship close into the race.
Okay. So he'll gallop maybe once or twice over the racetrack when he gets there, and that's it?
Yeah. You'll probably get in, like right now, tentatively, depending on weather, he'll work here Saturday or Sunday before the Derby, and he'll leave on the Monday and arrive the Tuesday. He'll walk the Tuesday, gallop Wednesday, Thursday, and depending on Friday, we gallop or walk him.
All right. Saffie, I'll wrap up. I'll shut the recording and then I'll say goodbye to you off camera. But I just want to, on the record, thank you so much. You're a gentleman for coming on the show. Thanks for taking all the questions. I wish you and everybody at Past the Wire wishes you the best run you could possibly have, and everything to go smooth as silk in Louisville. Congratulations. You've done really, really well. Put yourself in a great spot. And we will absolutely be rooting for you and watching and cheering for you guys.
Thank you very much, John.
All right. I'll stop the recording now and we'll say goodbye.
Nobody does it better.